Hey, it's Thomas Mulready from CoolCleveland.com, and we're here today at Rivergate Park, and we're here with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us.
Thanks for having me, Thomas.
You know, you are here today to help launch the EcoWatch.org website. Why is this so important to have some more news and information on the national eco world?
Well, this is I think part of what we're seeing with Occupy Wall Street and with the trend towards more grassroots democracy. I think more and more Americans are realizing that they're losing their democracy, that we're seeing an outsized power by corporations who are now kind of running this kind of feudal corporate kleptocracy, and that's not where we want America to go. And the only way to get it back is for us to take it back, and that starts at the grassroots.
So what is missing in people's lives that they're going to need? I mean, is it just that there's so much information now that we need to more folks like Stefanie and EcoWatch to kind of bring us all this information, or what do you think is missing?
Well, you know, what we found is that the internet is a really good organizing tool for democracy, and that there's a lot of grassroots passion out there. There's a lot of grassroots organizing talent. There's a lot of energy. And this is a way of consolidating it all in one agglomeration where people can come and say, I want to participate in the future of my community. I want to participate in the destiny and making decisions about the destiny of my community. And there's other people who feel the same way that I do. And this connects all those people together.
Right. Talk about Waterkeeper Alliance, an organization that you've been involved in.
This was a classic grassroots organization. It was started on the Hudson River back in 1966 by a blue-collar coalition of commercial and recreational fishermen who mobilized to reclaim the Hudson from its polluters. These were people who they weren't kind of your prototypical affluent environmentalists. They were factory workers, carpenters, lathers, electricians. Half of the people who started the group were crabbers or commercial fishermen who lived in a little fishing village called Crotonville, New York. They came together in an American Legion Hall. Most of them were former Marines. They were combat veterans, usually from Korea, and later on from Vietnam. And they had come back and saw their fishery being destroyed, and they said, we've got to, they went to the government agencies that are supposed to protect Americans from pollution. And they were given the bum's rush, and they said the only way that we're going to reclaim the river for ourselves is if we confront the polluters directly.
Talk about the Cuyahoga River. We're here at Rivergate Park. The Cleveland Rowing Foundation just moved in here. We're so proud that we're now reclaiming a bit of our own river here.
Well, this is where the whole grassroots environmental movement started, when the Cuyahoga River, I remember what it was like before Earth Day. I remember Lake Erie being declared dead. I remember the Cuyahoga River burning, and that was one of the things that had set off the biggest public demonstration in the history of the United States. 20 million Americans, 10% of our population, came out onto the streets to demand that our political leaders return to the American people the ancient environmental rights that had been stolen from our citizens over the previous 80 years. And it frightened the political establishment, Republicans and Democrats, and over the next 10 years, we created EPA, and we passed 28 major environmental laws that now, provide the template for every other country in the world.
So you see a direct connection between that Cuyahoga River fire and the entire really modern environmental movement.
Yeah, the Cuyahoga River is the milestone event, the fire on the Cuyahoga, that kicked off the modern environmental movement, which was really an effort to reclaim American democracy.
Where are we now? We're about 42 years from that fire, about 40 years from the Clean Water Act, which I know you're very proud of, and we all are. But there's been some backsliding, and there's been some issues. Where do you think we stand right now?
Well, the Clean Water Act was supposed to end all discharges of pollutants into America's waterways by 1980. It was supposed to make every river in our country and every waterway fishable and swimmable by 1984. And clearly we didn't get there. And the reason we didn't get there is because the big polluters stepped in and began using their clout on Capitol Hill to erode and subvert the democratic objectives of the Clean Water Act, and we're still fighting that today. We now have the most anti-environmental Congress in United States history. we have the Republicans, the Tea Party Republicans in Congress that are paid for by the Koch brothers, who are the biggest polluters in America. And they're trying to subvert the act and erode it and dismantle it. And we're fighting to keep it.
Talk about Occupy Wall Street. This is what's happening right now. It's Occupy Cleveland here in our town, and they're moving into smaller towns now. What does that mean for the stuff that you've been working on for your entire life?
This is the same thing we've been working on in the environmental domain. It's about reclaiming American democracy, and you see these people ridiculed on TV, on Fox News, etc., as hippies who really don't have a mission. But if you go down to Occupy Wall Street, and I've been down there many times now, you'll see they know exactly what they're talking about and exactly what they want. They see the destruction of the middle class in America. They see the domination of corporations, of the democratic political process, and they want American democracy back, starting with the restoration of the American middle class.
Talk about fracking in the Midwest. This is a big issue here. Energy is huge, and the jobs that are created through the energy industry. But fracking has some really nasty side effects that not sure that everyone is fully been explored yet. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think in the fracking issue, that the natural gas industry has been its own worst enemy by not being straightforward about the issue. There are tremendous resources in America, natural gas resources locked under the land, and some of those have potential to do some good things for our country and to do, to revitalize some rural economies. But we really don't know the answers, and the reason we don't know the answers is because the natural gas industry has been working overtime to conceal its practices and to conceal the destructive impact of its practices from the American people, and to conceal long-term economic costs and the judgments that we have to make about those costs. The data, we just don't have it today.
We have had an issue here in Cleveland and probably in other places where we just haven't had access to our waterways. Big industry and private ownership is what started. It's why Cleveland is here, because of its location on the river and on the lake. Simple question, how do we regain and reclaim our waterways again for the general public?
Well, this is an issue about democracy. Access to the waterways is a democratic right. It's a human right. It's what we call the public trust doctrine, which safeguards the commons, those assets that are not susceptible to private property ownership, but by their nature are the property of the entire community: the air, the water, the wildlife, the fisheries, the public lands, the wandering animals. Since ancient Roman times, since the first efforts at constitutional government, the Code of Justinian provided that those things belong to the people. And the same thing as the Ohio Constitution provides. If you're rich or poor, black or white, urban or rural, you have young or old, you have an absolute right to walk down to the Cuyahoga River, pull out a fish, and bring it home and feed it to your family with the security that you're not going to poison somebody. And that's the right that belongs to everybody in Ohio, but it's a right that's been stolen from every citizen in Ohio, because every fish in this state, literally every single fish, now has advisories against eating them, because big industry has used political clout to privatize the commons. And the best measure of how a democracy functions is how it distributes the goods of the land, whether it keeps the commons in the hands of the people, or whether it allows individuals, powerful individuals within a society, to privatize the commons. And if you look at every tyranny across the globe in the history of mankind, one of the first steps in one of the first milestones of every tyranny are efforts by private individuals, powerful entities within a society, to privatize the commons. And that's what we see here in Ohio. It's something that is very anti-democratic. And one of the first things that we need to do if we want to restore our democracy is to restore access to the commons, including starting with the Cuyahoga River.
Well, hopefully this effort today with Waterkeeper Alliance and EcoWatch.org, where you're joining together to create this website and great information resource really for the grassroots national environmental movement, hopefully we'll move in that direction. Thank you so much, Mr. Kenny, for taking time.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for Cool Cleveland.
Thanks for being in Cleveland. Hey, it's Thomas Mulready from CoolCleveland.com. Have a great week in Cool Cleveland.